Now it's time for an action explosion. I suppose that I am as susceptible to nostalgia as the next guy. I would rather I wasn't, and I would like to tell myself that I am not. But all you have to do is take one look at my office, which is chock-a-block with 80s action figures, to figure out that I, like all of you, have not quite been able to let my childhood go. And as I think back on movie-going over the past 10 or 15 years, the one moment that stands out to me as the most pure nostalgia fuel has got to be going to see Michael Bay's first Transformers movie in the theater. Sitting there in that theater chair, watching the screen illuminate with space, and then hearing the voice of Optimus Prime intone, "I am Optimus Prime." That was just a punch to my 8-year-old gut in the best way possible. And of course, to very smartly have Prime continue to be voiced by Peter Cullen, who had voiced Prime back in the old 80s cartoons, stroke of genius, and again, set my little nerd heart aflutter. Unfortunately, that movie never lived up to the first couple of minutes, that first introductory voiceover. And while it was okay, the Transformers movies that have followed have been varying degrees of watchable but awful. That is, at least until Bumblebee came along last summer. I don't know how it took them so long. I think Bumblebee is the 6th Michael Bay universe Transformers movie. How did it take them 6 movies to finally figure out how to do one of these movies? The emotional core of that first Transformers movie has got to be the relationship between Bumblebee and Shia the Beef LaBeouf. And purportedly, that was Spielberg's idea. Steven Spielberg was an exec producer on those movies, and he was the one who suggested that really, at its core, Transformers ought to be a movie about a boy and his car. And while Shia LaBeouf is varying degrees of obnoxious, that core is what makes that first Transformers movie work arguably better than any that followed it. And smartly for Bumblebee, the spin-off sequel following just Bumblebee, here finally rendered as a VW bug, as God intended. This movie set in the 80s, they decided to go back to that basic and make a story about a boy and his car, although noting the era that we're in now as we're finally starting to come to our senses regarding gender equality, this ain't a movie about a boy and his car, this is a movie about a girl and her car. And here that girl is played by Hailee Steinfeld to terrific degrees. Now Steinfeld really owns this character. She brings a lot of solid emotion to it, a lot of pure teenage rebellion and angst in a way that the Buff never did, and really makes her character come to life. She's acting, of course, against a bunch of CGI creations, including Bumblebee. And while they've always been able to give Bumblebee a little bit more personality and intelligence than most of the Transformers, the reality is that Hailee is still acting against literally nothing. And so that she's able to bring so much emotion and empathy to the role is a real testament to her talents at still such a young age. The other thing this movie finally gets right is that it has solid, easy to follow action. Part of the problem of those other Transformers movies is, these are movies that at the end of the day are about robots punching each other, but these robots are so intricately and oddly designed that when you watch them punch each other in shaky camera movements, you can't tell what the heck is going on. Here they've gone back to a more minimal 80s cartoon-inspired aesthetic so that when one robot punches another robot, you at least have some sense of which robot is punching which robot, which is great. If you're seeing a movie about robots punching robots, you want to know the robots. You can't tell the players without a scorecard. The story is also a fun story. Again, it's about a girl in her car largely, although there are some MacGuffins in there. It does get a bit muddled, but here, maybe for the first time in the Transformers franchise, you feel like you have screenwriters who understand the basics of storytelling, including things like callbacks and payoffs. Bumblebee is a very solidly fun movie, really built on the shoulders of Hailee Steinfeld, that if you've been disappointed by the early Transformers movies, I'd say give this one a shot. 4 stars.